This is DC, powered by people and ideas, where the community comes together, voices are heard, and decisions are shaped.
So I want to start by saying, welcome home.
Connecting you to what matters and to each other.
How you doing? You know, what's the tea?
I'm Lorenzo Hall, and this is the DC Beat. And welcome to the DC Beat. I'm Lorenzo Hall. I want to talk about an issue that seems to be really dividing our city right now: youth curfew zones. We've talked about it a lot in this space and heard from those for and against. So here is where we stand right now. The DC Council voted 8-5 Tuesday to implement a permanent youth curfew and 11 p.m. curfew for those under 18, taking effect in the fall, and will allow MPD to establish youth curfew zones as needed. Now, it still requires a second vote on May 5th and congressional review to become law in the fall. So Brianna Nadeau, Janice Lewis-George, Robert White, Zachary Parker, and Trayon White all voted no. Here's why.
Government cannot substitute for parents. Families and guardians have a fundamental responsibility to guide and supervise their children. I'm going to say that one more time, because it takes a village. Families and guardians have a fundamental responsibility to guide and supervise their children. That role cannot be outsourced to a citywide curfew or to the government. And so while I do not plan to support a further extension of the curfew, I do not plan to vote for a permanent application of the curfew, I am inviting my colleagues, the mayor's team, for us to all sit down to come up with a youth-centered agenda that will really address the root causes of what is playing out. And I saw something also, or I think it was in the mayor's letter, that, oh, when you say root causes, that's really code language for doing nothing. No, actually, it's addressing the root causes so that we can have a real solution that works and takes hold. If we have applied more and more curfews and we're seeing more and more young people being detained by cops or running around on national TV by the National Guard, that is not only an embarrassment to the district, it lets us know this policy is not working.
Adding and utilizing this tool while this city is currently under federal occupation is dangerous. It is dangerous for our young people. It is dangerous for our community as a whole. And the risk does not outweigh the perceived benefits. What we have seen since these expanded juvenile curfews have gone into effect, this weekend, videos and headlines circulated showing officer pulling away young women forcibly off a bike riding path. That was 2, not in a group of 8, 2 young women pulled off their bikes. We've received reports and videos of officers and armed guards threatening youth with pepper spray and paint guns, things we vowed to get rid of after the George Floyd era of protest and actions that were taken. And yet these things, pepper spray and paint guns, are being utilized in this moment to threaten and enforce these curfews.
The curfews are not working, right? So people want to be able to go out to dinner, feel safe. We all deserve that. But as my colleague said, we started these curfews last summer. For the better part of a year, we've had the curfews. And the things that we're pointing to, saying these are the reasons we need the curfews, are things that have happened while we've had curfews. If it's not working, why would we keep doing this? But to make it worse, and this is why the strategy matters, right? The proposed budget that we got last week cuts over $6 million from the Department of Behavioral Health, including school-based behavioral health. Is this going to make it better or worse? It's going to get worse. The proposed budget cuts $35 million from the Department of Human Services, including for family support services. This is going to make it worse. The proposed budget we received last week cuts over $5 million from the Department of Parks and Rec, which we're saying is going to come save the day. This makes the issue worse. But on the other side of the ledger, it adds $90 million for MPD. How is it that we always have the money to incarcerate and handcuff, but we don't have the money to prevent?
All right, so the council decided to table an emergency bill that would allow the youth curfew and curfew zones to take effect now and through the summer. 9 yes votes are required for emergency legislation. Clearly, you saw, the votes just aren't there. So you might be asking, what now? I want to bring in at-large council member Donnie Crawford into the conversation. She was appointed to the council seat vacated by Kenyon McDuffie, who is now running for mayor, of course. Crawford is running to stay in that seat, and she joins me at the table tonight. All right, Donnie, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, Lorenzo.
All right, so this curfew, we've been talking about it for a while now. So you are clearly in favor of this extended curfew. Why?
I am now. I will say
now.
about 3 weeks ago, I was not in a position where I wanted to support the emergency on the extended curfew zones. And what I decided to do was come together with my team and eventually with some of my colleagues and the mayor to really talk about what can we do to make sure that when extended curfew zones go into effect, we're also pairing it with youth programming. That's really important to me, that we're not just telling youth where they can't go, but we're providing alternative spaces for them.
Yeah, I like when you said that yesterday. You said we're telling teens and young folks where they can't be, so we need to also tell them where they can be.
Yes.
That was pretty strong. And you wanted to make sure that was included before you would vote yes.
Yes, exactly. And that's what made me comfortable voting yes yesterday. We also spent a lot of time talking to youth themselves, youth organizations as well, to really get their opinions. I was grappling with even, is it better to have a citywide curfew that's earlier than the standard hours, or should we focus on these zones? And overwhelmingly, I heard that zones would be less punitive than telling everyone, all the kids across the city, hey, you have to be home at 8 p.m., for example. Yeah. And so that's what got me more comfortable with zones. And then just having a little bit more guardrails around what MPD could do as well, because we had also heard from youth that they felt like they were at times being accosted and harassed. And so we made sure that MPD really has to make sure that teenagers are in violation of the curfew before they are taking action against them.
You know, we heard from some of your council colleagues who, even with this, still said no. They're not in favor of it. They're worried about, you know, what this can do to teens in terms of this visual here. So even with that said, you know, why do you think they're still voting no?
I think we've seen that often in the research, you know, curfews are not a long-term solution. We all know that. Everyone has said it's a short-term, there's nothing else in place, it's a temporary tool. And I believe that's where they're coming from. I will say every member unanimously supported my amendment, even though some members did not vote for the overall bill. So I was happy that I landed in a place where people did acknowledge that this was a positive step. Right. And again, that's why I felt comfortable moving forward with the vote.
So tell me how you mentioned that you're comfortable with it now. So
yes.
Tell me about the place you were in before. What were your big hang-ups and what got you over to the other side? Clearly these amendments help, but
sure.
That's quite the change.
So I had my own personal opinions before I became a council member, right? I was not supportive of curfews. I just feel like they do more harm than good often. And when I became a member, that was one of the first things I started asking parents, youth organizations. I went to several youth town halls, and so did my team. And I was very surprised when I talked to people out in the community. About 80% of people said they supported the curfew. Yeah. So that made me open my eyes a little bit to this is what I'm hearing from the community as now a member of the council. Yeah. And then after that, I said, okay, if this is what I'm hearing, and if this issue is not going away, right? We kind of kicked the emergency vote several times at this point. I wanted to offer a solution to my colleagues because I felt it was really important, now that I'm a member, to also provide an alternative or say, here's a potential solution for you to consider. So I was really happy to see it incorporated in the permanent bill yesterday. And again, I continue to be open to working with my colleagues to see what we can do to provide additional investments in the youth.
Yeah, so we know there was movement there when you talk about the permanent bill, but this emergency legislation, which would apply to the spring and summer months, that's a no. The 9 votes just aren't there.
Yes. And for your viewers, just so they know, a permanent bill requires, you know, majority vote, 7 votes. Emergencies require 9. Right. And so we fell 1 vote short on considering the emergency to be able to move it forward. Yeah. And the mayor has an executive order that's in place to still allow these curfew zones through May 1st. Our next scheduled meeting is May 5th, so there may be a gap in the law. Yeah. Either the mayor will have to call another curfew zone through an emergency, or there was some talk yesterday of the council potentially convening sooner than May 5th.
Okay, so do you think it's possible for this emergency bill to go through? And if not, what happens between now and the fall? Does Mayor Bowser just keep issuing these, declaring emergencies?
That wouldn't be efficient,
Okay,
but I know some of the members who are on the side of not supporting the emergency yesterday said they wanted to see additional resources in mental health services and potentially even stronger accountability for parents. This was said particularly by Councilmember Parker. So I believe that is something he is going to be working on before the council meets again.
Okay. Donnie Crawford, at-large council member, we appreciate it. Thank you for
Thank
being
you for
here with us
having me.
during conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and while we're having this conversation, I just saw a post on Twitter from Councilmember Zachary Parker saying he's hosting a Youth Alternatives to Teen Takeovers. It's going to be at the Wilson Building on April 30th, and that's at 3 p.m. So again, this conversation is just going to keep going. And Mayor Bowser, by the way, also declared an emergency to bring back youth curfew zones. You heard us talking about that. But that order expires on May 1st. So the conversation continues. All right, up next, a lot of our neighbors are sounding off about the Nets and the National Mall. A lot of our neighbors are still sounding off about a video posted by the Nats. Perhaps you have seen it already. It's asking new players about their favorite store on the National Mall.
Favorite store at the National Mall?
At the National Mall? I don't really go to the mall.
Are there stores there?
National Mall? Where's that?
Favorite store at the National Mall? Ooh, I haven't been there in a long time. I can't even think of one right now. The only one I've spent any time at is the Verizon store. So that's all I can think of right now.
Do they have a Dior?
I'd just say Nordstrom. Get some pretty nice stuff, pretty good prices. So yeah.
Do they have a Dior, Nordstrom? Yeah, you all had a lot to say about this one here. A few people thought it was funny, others not so much. One person wrote, "This is a bad look for the team." Another said, "This is low-key embarrassing." Followed by, "Wait, these are players for a DC sports team? Yikes." Someone else commented, "This is not a good look for the hometown team to not even know the hometown." And the National Park Service even left a note there, a lengthy note, you see, offering to show the players around. All right, also get ready for a big party in D.C. A D.C. staple will soon be open again on U Street. Ben's Chili Bowl says their original location will reopen May 1st. The restaurant's been going through renovations and repairs for the last 9 months. They plan to hold a big party again on May 1st with live go-go music starting at noon. So you know that's going to be a party all day. And get this, that's not all. Ben's is taking down its iconic mural and designing a new one. And they want to hear from you. They want your input. There's our late Bruce Johnson, our good friend there, who should be on the new mural. They say it can be anyone, artists, activists, historical figures, celebrities, DC legends, or athletes. You can submit your ideas to Ben's Chili Bowl. All right, people are also sounding off about an international car theft ring busted right here in D.C. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pirro says 6 suspects, all in their 20s, have been arrested and they're accused of stealing more than 100 vehicles in D.C. last year to ship them overseas. Pirro explains how it happens.
Welcome to the new world of car theft. In the dead of night, crews strike the streets in Washington, D.C., in Maryland, and in Pennsylvania. And in seconds, they reprogram Corvettes, Camaros, Honda Civics, and a Honda Civic, by the way, is the most popular stolen car in the country today. They end up reprogramming these cars to accept a blank key fob. And it's almost immediate while on the street. They literally disconnect the GPS and the Bluetooth. But this isn't joyriding. These are high-end vehicles that are then loaded on transport carriers headed to ports in Savannah and Baltimore, Maryland. But first, they are cooled off. They're cooled off where the plates are exchanged, in one place on I Street in the Navy Yard, and in another place where they swap out the plates, curiously, a parking garage at a Marriott in Maryland. From there, they are loaded onto shipping containers that are labeled furniture as opposed to cars because there will not be as much scrutiny. And then the shipping containers are sent across the ocean to Africa, where they get top dollar on the black market.
Yeah, so Pira went on to say that she and Mayor Bowser say this is part of their effort to cut down on car thefts in D.C. It's been a big problem. So, let's keep talking about some of the issues in the district and potential solutions. At the table with me tonight is Democratic at-large council candidate Laniqua Dominique Jenkins. Laniqua Dominique, good to see you. Thanks for coming on, being at the table.
I'm excited to be here, Lorenzo. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, all right, so the big issue in the city right now that a lot of people are talking about, clearly, we talked about it just minutes ago on this show, the youth curfew and where we stand with that. We thought there was going to be some sort of resolution this week and things would be in place, but obviously the council still not so sure what they want to do in terms of the emergency legislation. So if you were on the council, what do you do?
I would start by listening, and that's something that I've actually been doing. I've had the opportunity to talk with students, young people that are really engaged and participatory in the democratic process. And they made it abundantly clear that they were interested in having a place to be, just to exist and hang out. So it's really concerning about this really big disconnect between the voice of the council and the voice of the folks that are actually impacted. They've come up with really smart and clear solutions about where they want to be, what type of ideas they have about being engaged. Some students actually articulated that they would love a multiplex, like somewhere to have a gaming station or a podcast, a place to study. And they would love to see that particular investment east of the river, where I was talking to the students at Thurgood Marshall Academy.
Yeah, so do you vote for this curfew? Do you vote against it? What would be your take if you were on the council?
I would actually vote against the curfew.
You're against the curfew?
I'm very much against the curfew. Part of what has influenced that decision is from actively listening to the folks that are impacted. Also, the concern is that data doesn't really support the issues that we've identified. So it's been really inconsistent about, does this actually address victimization? Does it actually address an uptick in violence? And we've had this legislation for a very long time, like different iterations of it since 1995, and we haven't seen drastic changes in the issue that we're hoping to address.
Yeah, so we know that this is a big issue for the council right now. It seems to be the only thing the city is talking about.
I agree.
Do you think this is the most urgent issue that the council should be addressing, or is it something else?
I think that many things can coexist.
Okay.
There are a lot of urgent and critical issues that are very timely and top of mind for a lot of people. Affordability, housing security, mental health. And I think that thinking about it as a this or that sort of thing kind of puts us into a silo and kind of have us kind of under the misconception that we can't chew gum and walk. And we're definitely past that. I believe in the council, I believe in the political will that we can do a lot of things at once. And I would love to see us do that. We can have this conversation about the curfew and conversations about all the things that are equally as important.
So what do you think is the biggest threat DC is facing right now?
Wow, that's a really big question. There are lots of things, and I think that my response to that would be based off my sphere of influence. So some would say ICE, some would say federal takeover, some would say state-sanctioned violence from police. Others would say just meeting their basic needs. A lot of my neighbors east of the river are forced to make survival choices and not smart choices because of economic instability, inability to find jobs, federal job cuts. 300,000 Black women recently lost their jobs. If I used myself as a personal case study, I'm the primary breadwinner for my family. I'm responsible for 3 generations, my mom, my dad, a niece, a nephew. And if I were to lose my job, that could be 3 generations of displacement. And my situation isn't unique. It's actually called the sandwich generation, where Black women in particular are actually taking care of children and aging parents or a loved one. So I think that depending on your sphere of influence, depending on your ability, as a therapist once told me, control the controllables, the things that you're able to control, that answer would vary from person to person. And I believe that the council has the ability to address all of those things and not just one thing.
So for folks who are just hearing about Laniqua Dominique Jenkins, what is your priority on the council? Why this run for at-large?
Well, folks are just now hearing about me. I'm really disappointed. My candidacy is very robust and as diverse as the city, and my platform reflects that. Just in the interest of time, I would like to synthesize 3 things that I'm passionate about as the 3 E's. So equity, making sure that the District of Columbia, the government is working the same for everyone, independent of where you live. Like your zip code should not determine how resources are allocated to you or your community. I see what happens firsthand living east of the river when resources don't reach people. The second is education. Kids should be able to read on level by 3rd grade. Reading on level by 3rd grade is an excellent indicator of not just academic outcomes, but also future outcomes as well in terms of success and career opportunity. And then finally, environmental justice, keeping DC greener and cleaner and creating green jobs.
A lot of folks don't talk about that, the environmental aspect of things.
Wow. In my personal life, I'm actually a minimalist. So I live a very close to nature lifestyle. I enjoy being outside. DC has a lot of green spaces. Ward 7 is actually one of the greenest wards in the District of Columbia. We actually have the longest municipal park, which is Marvin Gaye Park. I've hosted several environmental justice education opportunities in my community and throughout the district. Some that I like to mention that I'm really excited about is actually cleaning up the Anacostia. So pedaling and picking up trash. Another is expanding the education in my community by using Deanwood, where I live, as a case study and walking my neighbors through the community and highlighting different grievances and environmental justice issues using my community as a case study. So educating them about the difference between a food swamp and a food desert and food apartheid, which is the real issue that's happening. You know, fresh resources being denied to people based on race, class, and location, which is actually a policy issue as well.
Now, as an at-large council member, you would have to review the mayor's budget. As you know, right now, DC is facing a $1.1 billion budget gap. Who knows how much that may grow, considering the federal government's influence over the city. Based on what you've seen and your analysis of things, is there any area in DC government that you would cut to help make up for some of these funds?
Any area that I would cut? Cut, yes, because we need to skim the fat. DC
what
is
is some of the fat? Like, what do you?
Some of the fat is meaning DC is very resource rich. We have lots of resources, lots of programming, but the resources are not reaching the people. So I think oversight, which is one of the muscles that I would have as a future council member, is that I would be able to look at how the programs are not working. So specifically in relation to the budget, there was $24 million spent on workforce development, but only 6% of folks actually got a job. We need to look very closely about pipelines from career development to employment and employment retention and competitive paying jobs and see what's missing there and why $24 million is only producing a 6% employment outcome.
Yeah. You look at public safety as well. That's another big issue for folks. Are there any changes that you think the city needs to make in order to keep people safe? Do you like the funding for the police department? What do you think of violence interrupters? Where do you stand on some of those?
I think that, as my grandma would say, the best prescription is prevention. I believe that investing in people is preventative. You will see the outcomes of that, the ripple effect. You'll see a reduction in crime when you invest in people, when you invest in mental health, when you invest in public education spaces. I feel like that's where our dollars should be going. The budget is a moral document, and I would love to see a stronger and clearer reflection of the heart of the people and investment in people.
So what does that look like in terms of budgeting and what you are truly investing in as a candidate?
Yes.
Is there something that you're looking at right now and saying, you know what, this is something we cannot touch. This is where we need to actually put more money. I'm willing to sacrifice, A for B.
Well, one of the things that I noticed when I was listening to the budget was there were deep cuts in mental health and human services, ERAP, and that was deeply concerning. It's really difficult to focus beyond anything if your mental health is not stable, if you don't have secure, stable, dignified housing. I would definitely reconsider and think about deeply investing in those things. Rec centers experience deep cuts. I mentioned earlier during our conversation that young folks were very clear about wanting investments in rec centers and places to be. So to me, on its head, it seems like a disinvestment in people that need it the most.
Yeah, and so you are from Ward 7.
I am.
You got to talk about RFK Stadium and that whole site. What do you make of what's happening there? And obviously Mayor Bowser, the current leadership, they will be gone as this project is continuing. What can you commit to right now to let people know in terms of your priorities and staying on top of that development? Because a lot still hasn't been decided.
A lot hasn't been decided. I would love to see intentional, clear employment opportunities for residents east of the river. My understanding is that unions will have contracts particularly with construction opportunities. I would love to see clear education, clear conversations, clear pipelines to get residents prepared to participate with unions to ensure that they actually have employment opportunities. I love to quote my grandma and my mom, but one of the quotes that's really loud right now is, "Success is when preparation meets opportunity." So I would love to see the unions preparing people in my community, along with other construction opportunities, hospitality opportunities, meeting people where they are, to ensure that they have the opportunity to compete and actually secure opportunities for employment on that project.
Well, I have you here. I have to ask you about traffic cameras as well. That's always a big talker. We know we're talking about money and revenue and also
Yes.
keeping people safe at the time. So where do you stand on that issue? Do you think the city needs as many traffic cameras? Do you think they need more, fewer?
That's something that I have to show more scholarship around.
Okay.
But on its head, one of the things that I hear from my neighbors, from listening, from being engaged, and from being out with the community is that they're placed in predatory places. You know, they're stacked disproportionately east of the river, and I think that's something that we need to look very closely at.
Okay.
So I would start by making sure that they're equitably placed, or maybe placed in a position where it makes sense. Like maybe it's there as a calming measure, maybe the camera is there because there is an uptick in speeding or something of that nature. But I would want to ensure that my community and all of our neighbors know the science and the methodology behind placing the cameras where they're positioned, so that they know for a fact that it's not predatory and that it's not targeted towards a specific demographic.
Last question for you. As a
Yes.
council member, you'd have to work with the city's next mayor. Is there someone you're looking at right now and saying this person would be great at the job?
I am really excited by all of the mayoral candidates. I really pride myself on being a person that can build bridges, and I invite and I'm excited by the opportunity to work with anyone. I think that's what's really needed on the council, being able to kind of steer and reach a majority in order to pass legislation, and having that type of competency, but most importantly, that type of heart. I'm highly prepared to do it and excited.
Lanico Dominique Jenkins, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you
At-large
for
council
having me,
candidate.
Lorenzo.
Thank you for
I
coming
hope you
on.
invite me back again.
Of course, come on back.
Yes, I'm excited.
All right, let's end on a high note, shall we? The National Zoo's newest star made her public debut today. Meet Lem Mai, meaning spirit blossom in Vietnamese. Look at her go. This video from the zoo's elephant cam captures the 2-month-old up close. She already weighs about 500 pounds and is the first elephant born at the zoo in nearly 25 years. So you can now see Lem Mai in person during regular zoo hours. So go check her out. Give her a warm welcome. That does it for the DC Beat this week. I will see you back here next Wednesday.